Welcome to It's Happening in Grand Prairie. I'm Georgia Clemson, and we have a very special edition for you today. We have our executive producer for GPTV, Don Johnson. Welcome, Don.
Thanks for having me.
Well, of course, and something big is happening in your life here. We're talking about 30 years big.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us what we're celebrating today.
Well, after 30 years, I've decided that I'm going to retire. It's not because I don't love the job and love what I'm doing, but there's some other things going on, and I just think that it's a good time for me to move on.
Well, and that is a celebration because it opens up a new adventure for you and your family. And
I don't have to spend an hour and 20 minutes every day coming from East Dallas.
That's right.
And then going back home into East Dallas. The commute has been a killer the last 10 years.
Yes, which is a huge blessing. Now, Don, it's hard to put this all in one program because you have spanned 30 years here with Grand Prairie. But let's start at the beginning. Where were you born?
In David City, Nebraska. You're talking small towns. This is not even a small town. It's a small town. There were like 1,500 people who lived there. My parents, both my parents were born there. So I was born there. My second youngest brother was born there. And then we moved to another place in Nebraska. Then we moved to Kansas. We lived in two towns there, and a large one at the end in Pittsburgh, Kansas. And then by then I was in college and had moved out of state. So I went from Kansas to Iowa, and in between there I lived for a while in Missouri where I was finishing up college. So all four of those Midwestern states is where I lived. Iowa was the most interesting because I lived right alongside the Mississippi River in the Quad Cities. And if you've never lived in a place with a river like the Mississippi, it is a whole different kind of experience. And it was really cool living there.
And you went to college in Kansas and Missouri?
Yes, I went to the University of Kansas for 2 years. My parents moved out of state, and the out-of-state tuition was just out of reach. So they lived about 30 minutes away from a university in Warrensburg, Missouri. So during the summer, I hurried up and got enrolled there and finished up, got a degree from Central Missouri State University.
And what was your degree in, Don? Don't ask.
Public relations, because back in those days, there wasn't any radio or television dedicated programs or career paths, because radio was basically, disc jockeying on top 40 stations. FM had just come in the early 70s. There was no real TV or film departments back then, even in a university the size of KU. So when I got to Warrensburg and I had all these credits, when I was ready, I already had 2 commercial jobs at radio stations by that time in '75. I said, tell me what I can get out of here with right now.
Right.
Public relations, sold.
I can relate to that. I did the same thing.
So I was ready to get out of college.
Yes. So you mentioned briefly, where did you get your training for what you have done for us for the past 30 years?
I started in radio when I was 18 years old in Lawrence, in University of Kansas, a campus station. Worked in radio until about 1975, and then I moved to Waterloo, Iowa, coldest place I ever lived in my life, at a place that had radio and television. And back in those days, most local stations did both. They had radio and TV sides. And that was the first time I got to go and do anything in front of one of these cameras. It was in 1974, and then I got another job at another television station that had a radio side in the Quad Cities, Mississippi River. And you just learned on the job. I'd learned how to do film back in the 70s when you took classes in film, or it wasn't even TV production. You had film cameras is what you were playing with, experimenting with, learning how to use. So all the equipment was film back in those days. So you came in, got the job, and said, "There's the camera. Go out and learn how to use it."
Yes, on-the-job training.
And that was it, and that was your training. And the old guys that were at the place would tell you some tips and what not to do and what to do. And so the gear was film, but in the mid-70s, electronic news gathering, mini cams started coming in, and our station there in Davenport, Iowa, got 3 of these new mini cams. So it went from film to digital tape,
Yes.
and then from there, the cameras got smaller and smaller and smaller.
So you've had wonderful experience. Now you got all that experience, and how did you get to Grand Prairie, Texas?
I had enough of. I love the Mississippi River, but the winters in Iowa are brutal. People complain here about winter. You have no idea how bad it can be, for weeks and months on end. So I sent tapes to everywhere, resume tapes. I got hired in Dallas at KDFW, which was a CBS station back then, and I'd been anchoring and had done street reporting, and back in those days, you did it all. You shot the footage, you came back, and before we had tape, you cut the film, edited the tape when we went to tape. So when I got to Dallas, I didn't have to do any of that anymore. I was strictly a reporter and on camera. I did a little bit of anchoring on weekends and fill-in stuff. So I was there for about 9 years. And then by that time, the industry had really taken a different direction. It wasn't really journalism anymore. It was performing.
Different, very different.
I didn't want to do that. That's not why I got into it.
So you were in front of the camera, and your past 30 years, you've been behind the camera and making everybody else look good.
Again, on the job, it seemed like, when I came here, Amy Sprinkles hired me in 1995, and I had left broadcasting for about 2.5, 3 years by then. And I was pretty desperate to find permanent employment with benefits,
Yes.
So I saw the job posting, it came in, I got hired. So one of the biggest changes was coming from a private corporate industry, a news industry, where the pockets are deeper and there are different kind of stresses and strains, to working for a city government. And so there was a little bit of a philosophy change, but that didn't take real long.
Yes.
And when I got here, we had 2 tape recording machines and 3 cameras in the council chamber, and that was Grand Prairie Television. Your mom was doing public access. We hadn't even changed it to a government channel. It was still a public education government channel. She was doing programming for the cable company at their studio location, and we didn't do anything with that for years. So we had no equipment, so we started from the ground up. And it started with everything with tape back then in the 90s. And so the equipment that we were using, it got more complicated, more sophisticated, and we went from tape to a couple of versions of tape equipment. And then we went to digital equipment. We were on standard definition until 2008. And then we upgraded to HD, and all the equipment has followed that evolution. It's all gotten smaller. The storage capacity is, exploded as far as how much you can use and do. So it's been interesting to see all of that firsthand.
Yes.
And use it for the different things that I was given responsibility to turn around.
And you mentioned my mom's program. Of course, it's happening in Grand Prairie,
and it happened.
And it was it every week, Don?
Your mom she was incredible. She did a show before we took over her programs, both of them, in the like 2005, 2006, I believe. And she was doing every week it's happening. She was doing a program. Well, Grand Prairie was starting to grow back then, but there really wasn't enough for every week.
Right.
So
Right.
we did for a while as many as she wanted, and then we kind of shrunk the number of programs. But I wound up doing about 200 of her episodes, and I've done about 150 of your shows.
Wow. That's a lot of history.
In the interim, you know, I probably, and somebody was asking me the other day, you know, how much? I said, okay, so I imagine we're up above 2,000 videos I've produced.
Wow.
At least, all right? And I couldn't tell you thousands of hours of video I've recorded in the studio or in other settings, and then out on the street doing events and things for the city of Grand Prairie. And part of the job here has been to write stories for the Grand Prairie Update program and a different version of that when I first started, and write scripts for other video projects. And I would say we're probably looking at 2,000-3,000 of those in those 30 years.
Yes, and
So,
everything has changed so much, as you said. People had to watch the show or record it, but now we can get it on YouTube.
in the early 2000s, we got a chance to get content to YouTube. All right, that was our first social media online thing, and that was pretty wild. So we no longer, you're right, people no longer had a VCR, the stuff they wanted to watch. Her mom had an entire library of VHS tapes that she recorded to make sure she had copies of her programs.
Yes, and then you have done a huge job and a service to the history of Grand Prairie by getting those onto YouTube and
That was quite
catalog.
the project.
Yes, I mean, but that is history that comes, I like to say, from the horse's mouth.
Right.
When she interviewed the person that actually had the experience, we have that on video now.
Right, and you know, she provided all the videotapes that were transferred to DVDs, and then I had to take those DVDs and pull the content and turn them into video clips that we push to YouTube. So all of her shows are on YouTube, all of your shows are on YouTube, and that was one of the biggest advantages between the middle and the end of the, you know, the first 10 years of 2000, that we started being able to have not just people who could watch the cable channel, but people around the world. And people around the world were watching those YouTube, have been and still do watch those YouTube videos.
Yes, and they love going back and seeing their relatives or their grandparents or somebody that is a mentor to them.
Right, and it's always there, you know, if somebody, you know, some family member goes, you know, so-and-so grandma or whomever was on the show, we have an index where you can actually drill down and find by name a guest that was on those shows, and then you can go to YouTube and pull it out of there and check it out.
Yes, and Don, out of all of the it's happening or it happened, what are some of the things that you might remember? Either somebody, a person that interviewed, or something unusual that happened?
Probably Ebby Holiday. Your mom had Ebby Holiday, and she had somebody, I'm trying to remember the other elderly lady.
Probably Donna Albus.
Yes.
Maybe. With Keep Texas Beautiful.
And they played a ukulele out here on the set. That was a hoot. They were talking about Keep Texas Beautiful, or beautification
Yes.
efforts in the state. So she had those two folks on there, and we have had, goodness gracious, there's so many episodes. We never had a meltdown in here. Most of the time, this is not live, but it's
Right.
live to tape. So we've never had any real equipment problems, or a guest get up and leave because they were stressed out and couldn't
Right.
do that. But that's probably one of the. And when we used to have the Arts Council, they showed up a few times in the early days of them coming in here in the late 2000s, and they came in costumes sometimes. So, and the set was different.
Oh, yes.
We had a set that had a couch in here, and so there was room for like 3 or 4 people. They had a couple people come in for episodes in costume.
Costumes.
So that was pretty wild.
That made it fun. I was trying to think of our shows that we had done, of any extraordinary guests. The only one I could think of, the most famous one I could think of was Saldivar.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And that was before anybody really knew
Right.
the
Knew
talent.
her. But anyway, we've had some fun times, and even some of on location times that have been very meaningful, and I'm glad we can do that. Now, let's go back. You have also done work with Terry Briggs.
Right.
You all did a little news show for a while, right? What was that called?
Back in the day, it was Grand Prairie Update, GP Update.
Okay.
We hired Terry because from '95 until 2008, with Amy's prompting, Amy Sprinkle's prompting, we had a Prairie Paws, which was a pet adoption show. We had Let's Get Growing, which was a horticulturist show with Susan Henson, city's horticulturist. For a while, we had a environmental services program called Know the Code. We had Heart to Heart, which was a program with the city manager, Tom Hart. And then we had all the events and programs and new policies and things that we generated stories for on a show called City Scene, which was a newscast kind of thing. And then in 2008, after doing all that on my own, me, myself, and I, we decided the city had gone from 78,000 to about 140,000 or 50,000 by that point in 2008. I couldn't handle it anymore. So we hired Terry because we were also going to go, the technology, the cameras, everything, editing equipment, was taking another evolutionary jump, and we were looking at going to HD from standard def. So we hired Terry to come in, and he took a tremendous load off of me, because now we had two people. He also has a broadcasting background, so he knew how to do the gear, write the stories, create the stories, and edit. So we had a second person doing what I could do, and it just made things much better. And man, we've been busy, you know, we really still stay busy with two people, because the city is just, that's been probably one of my most rewarding things, is I never lived anywhere as long as I've lived in, I live in East Dallas by White Rock Lake. I've never lived in the city as long as, any place as long as I've lived in Dallas. And I never worked at a job longer than 8 or 9 years when I was in broadcasting. So when I came here, and this was a really small city, place people were going through,
Yes.
didn't really want to bother with having to stop back in those days, to a place now where people come because they want to do things here,
Yes.
right? And to watch the city grow that way has just been absolutely amazing. And to be on the inside, you know, watching and being able to record all that growth, you know, in stories and videos, that's been
You
my,
got to experience it.
yes.
You were here, and like you said, record it. I think that's amazing. And for 30 years, and you're right, there have been huge changes, even in the past 15 years, 10 years.
Oh, the last 10 years are really, I mean, it's just
Yes.
been like a whirlwind of things changing in Grand Prairie.
Changes, but you've been part of that, an integral part, and a great part. And I'm glad you mentioned Terry, because you all make a great team and have done so much together. And now, as you pass the reins on to someone, it will be,
It'll be Terry.
it'll be Terry.
He's in the control room today for this recording. So,
yes.
and it's always, you know, it's kind of stressful, but it's also kind of cool that you could sit here and watch people talk about things. You know, they open up a lot in here sometimes, and they, you know, you get a perspective of why the city is doing things the way they do things. And if you really pay attention, you understand why the city has been so successful, because the attitude is from, and this has been something I brag about. I brag about Grand Prairie all the time to my family and to friends and to my wife's friends, that this city has always been dedicated to doing things for the citizens. And a lot of cities say that, Some of them do that. The Grand Prairie really does do that. Everything is directed at how they can improve the quality of life for people who come to make Grand Prairie their forever place, right?
Yes.
For however long. And I've always been really impressed with how the City Council has, danced with all their different personalities, but
Yes.
also stayed on point to things that really do improve Grand Prairie.
Yes, that's so important, and I'm glad you mentioned that you bragged to your friends and your wife's friends. Let's talk about your wife just a minute, Glenda.
Glenda, Jean, yes.
And you've been married how long?
It'll be 35 years in September. I cannot believe that.
And where did you meet Glenda?
It was at a race, actually it was a 5K race in Dallas. Back in those days, she and I were both serious runners.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to have a room full of her marathon trophies. So
Wow.
she wasn't just
Yeah.
out there, logging miles. She was super competitive. So
Super. And do you all still walk?
yeah,
Run?
we're very active. She walks and I walk. I quit running. I just got I ran since I was about 16 in high school, and about 62 years of that, and I went, I just don't want to deal with the stress of getting up in time to take a run and come to
Right.
work,
Yeah, Don, you may have to take up pickleball. That's a little bit easier, and you can play
Yeah.
indoors.
True. I mean, there's some other things I'm considering, but running, and we did triathlons and that. So she impressed me because she was serious about being an athlete, and her personality was just, she has been the reason I've been able to deal with a lot of the challenges of 30 years here, and
Yes.
equipment and technology can drive you insane sometimes.
Yes, so she's a good stabilizer.
Yes, she's been great, and her attitude has always been really helpful.
Yes, and I know it's exciting to think about 35 years with Glenda and what's going to come after the 30 years with Grand Prairie. So you said you might have other plans. Do you have anything other than travel and just enjoying life?
No, my house and the chores that come with having your own house and your own yard and that kind of stuff will keep me busy. I do not know. I've worked since I was about 12 years old. I threw newspapers. One of my brothers and I threw newspapers when we were 12 and 10, something like that.
Now that's an early job. Early
I
morning.
worked for my uncle in Kansas. He owned a restaurant, and I cleaned the restaurant for him on the weekends. And so I've had a job since I was that age. And so not having a job will be an interesting experience.
Yes, it will be fun. It'll be exciting. And I believe we're going to celebrate your retirement sometime soon with this, at the city as well.
That's right. And I also, one of my brothers still lives in Missouri, and I have two younger brothers who, one of them came here on a visit back in like 2004, and he decided he wanted to come to Texas. So he moved to Frisco, and about 4 years after that, my other brother, who was living in St. Louis, decided he was going to move to Frisco. So I now have two brothers in Frisco, and then the other brother is still back in Missouri where my parents were.
Well, that's exciting. You have a good place to visit, and
Yeah.
they have a good place to visit. That's so exciting. Now, Don, if you mentioned Amy Sprinkles as being a lifeline and a great mentor here.
She was the mover and shaker for the communications department, and then it was marketing when I was hired. Then it became the communications and marketing department, and then for a while she was also the director of the libraries.
Yes.
Talk about a busy person.
Oh, wow. She can get it done. I love it. I love it when you have somebody, a go-to person that knows how to get things done, and she does. It's wonderful. Is there anything else or anybody else with the city that you'd like to reminisce about?
Well, I'll tell you, the city council, because the equipment here has evolved, and so whenever we ask, and Amy and I would sit down and decide, you know, so do we need to make another reinvestment in things to keep current? Because one of the missions I had when I came here was to bring the quality standards you have working in broadcast, to bring those quality standards to Grand Prairie Television, even though, you know, we're a government channel. But so that was one of my main goals, and always has been, was to make this as professional as possible, so that when people look at it and then look at something else on TV, they don't go, oh, well, that's from the government. I wanted it to be, you can't tell really the difference, right? It's just a different channel. So the council, city council has always supported anything that I got Amy to support.
Yes,
She did the council to
like
approve
this,
it.
like
right?
the studio updates.
And one of the real champions was Tom Hart. He called me to his office one day because they were going to build the Charles England. We're in the Charles England Training Complex,
Yes.
Public Safety Training Complex, named after Charles England, another one of the great movers and shakers in the city's history. And he called me in and said, we're building this building. How would you like to have a studio? Because up until then, I'd have to drag portable lights to different settings so we could do programs. I said, yeah.
Of course.
So they carved out a space. This was where we're sitting right now was supposed to be a storage area. And the area next to this, where I have the editing equipment and my office, was just more storage. So they carved out a space in the studio, and he was gung-ho for anything that could improve and help, you know, the professional look of Grand Prairie Television. And
that was
those
a big
those
step.
two folks were probably one of the most
Biggest
relaxing parts of my job. I always knew somebody had my back
Yes.
and understood why we wanted to make more improvements, right? Because if you don't improve, then you're just getting stale.
Right. And that's been so important, and the leadership, as you said, through our city council and our Mayor Jensen and our former Mayor England and former Mayor, city managers and current, it's all a team effort, and it does make Grand Prairie, people don't know unless they see how fabulous Grand Prairie is. So you've made that happen, and
hopefully we put the word out there.
Yes, if they don't know about Grand Prairie, I always say now, when we get inquiries about Grand Prairie, who wouldn't want to come to Grand Prairie? Perfect location, great people to work with, and you've sent that message out and got that message to our
Mayor
viewers.
Jensen has been great. He really has. He knew it when he took over for Charles England, you know, and that was some big shoes he had to step into, and he realized how important, you know, video and social media. That's been the other revolution, was the impact of social media and what it can do for you if you approach it and use it correctly, and the city has, you know. And Mayor Jensen, Ron, has been really great at embracing that.
He has, and we appreciate him, and but today we're focusing back on you. Appreciate all that you have done for the city. We appreciate, well, I appreciate you personally for what you've done for us, for it's happening, and for my mom as well. And I won't ask you who was easier to work with. I'm not even going to go there.
It's a different approach. It's a different philosophy. That's all.
It's been such a pleasure working with you, of course, and your professionalism. I can always count on you, Don, and the city can as well. And we appreciate your past service, and we're excited about whatever you choose to do in the future, because it will be a choice from now on.
That's right, and that's something else I'll have to get used to, that I can decide not to do anything or do something today.
Yes, so you can, I would say, look into your camera and just tell them, we'll see you later, or see you around, or however you want to sign it off for yourself.
Okay. It's been an absolute pleasure working for the city of Grand Prairie and an absolute joy watching how this city has evolved from where it was when I came here in 1995 to where it is today. And I know that it will continue to be a very successful place to live, work, and play.
Yes, live, work, and play. I love it. Thank you, Don.
You're welcome. It's
Forever.
been a joy having to interact with you once a month here and in the other projects that we've been involved in.
My pleasure, and God bless you in your future adventures.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for joining us today. As always, I'm Georgia Clemson reminding you it's happening in Grand Prairie.